Now you're worse.
Yeah, we can't hear you. You sound like you have a pillow over your mouth.
That's what it is. It's
That would be me muting him.
okay. He's talking deep machshava anyways, from what I understood. So, yeah. So anyway, okay. So you started recording?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're at, again, reminder tomorrow, 5-ish. Daf is 5-ish. I appreciate the island's patience dealing with my lack of schedule or whatever. 5-ish, but it's not a long daf. I think this is the last of the real hard dafim. Then it gets much easier, including Elu Metzias. So, yeah, Gufa. You see, it's 3, 6, 7 lines down from the top. Yeah. So Gufa, right? Whenever time we have Gufa, it's a quote from the previous Gemara. So Matzah get Isha B'shuk. If a guy finds a get of a woman in the street, so Bismansha Baal Moida. So when the Baal is Moida that he gave a get to the Yasalisha, you give it to the wife. Ain't a Baal Moida. If the Baal does not admit, then Lo Yasal Lo Lezev Lo Lezev. Don't give it to either one, because like we said, if you would give it to either one, you're gonna have problem. You could have a potential problem if you give it to her. So she's gonna say, "I never got my ksuba from him," and she's gonna charge him. And if you give it to him, then maybe he taka divorced her and he didn't pay her yet. So we don't know what to do. But if he admits, then you give it to her. So the Gemara asks, "Is man shabal moida miya yasal isha?" You're saying that if the baal is moida, you give it to the isha. But why don't we say a chashash, which we had way back on Daf, I think Yud Beis? Why don't we chosha that maybe he wrote the get in Nisan, but he didn't give it to her until Tishrei, meaning he decided he's going to divorce her, but then somebody convinced him to try and work it out. So he held on to it for 6-7 months, and then he didn't only end to go to Tishrei. But also Baal Zavin Perim and Nisan Tishrei. So we know, and the Baal went and he so the husband is allowed to use what we call nichse milug, whatever properties the wife brings into the marriage, the husband's allowed to use those payers. He has the choice. He could sell it, he could eat it, whatever it is, he can use those payers. So the husband will sell the payers from Nisan to Tishrei, umafka legita, the kosa b'Nisan, and then she's going to bring out the get that was written in Nisan, v'asi lamitra l'kuchas shaloi kedin. She's going to go grab the l'kuchas shaloi kedin, right? Meaning, again, what's going to happen is, let's say the divorce taka happened in Tishrei, but she has a get written in Nisan. So he's busy selling the fruits, right? Let's say Shavuos time. She's going to come to the guys who bought the fruits off the husband and say, "Hey, the guy owed me the get. He was not married to me when he sold you these fruits by Shavuos. And since he was not married to me, all those fruits he sold you are mine," right? And that's because the get was written from Nisan.
Why would she be able to be turned from the kuchis?
Because it wasn't his to sell; it was hers.
I understand that, but Lakuchais, let's say somebody bought a field in between. That's not a shibud of that's not written in a star, the shibud. He took something Shalaikedin, according to what she's saying. Why would she be able to be tired from Lakuchais anyways? It's not something Meshubit or in a star that she could go ahead and collect. He stole from her.
Right. So
there's no bin to collect from Lakuchais when somebody steals from you. If you're Maimon Bedin, maybe. But she wasn't. We're not talking about being Maimon Bedin. It's like a Milval pet.
I understand, but the bottom line is he stole from her. So you get into.
But what are we worried about? She can't take from Lakuchis. That's what I don't understand. Why could she take from Lakuchis? It's a Milval pet. Him owing her money is a Milval pet. I bet. No, I mean, why would she be able to be Gaiva Mishubadim?
No, it's just that he.
It's a Gemeva. It's regular dinner Gemeva.
Right, Dinei you can just take from Kluches.
The Lekeach has no right of ownership over it. This is with Bezdin. I don't know why you're going without Bezdin. They go to Bezdin, and she shows this guest, and it's from Nissan, and they say, well, the guy sold Paris until then.
It's better than it was before, but Peretz is not crying. You don't see Peretz crying there, Gersh. Okay,
Are we
I
talking
don't.
about the people that bought the Paris? Is that what we're talking about?
What are you talking? What?
Are we talking about the people that bought the Paris? Shalai Kedin?
Again, what are you saying?
What are we talking about here? Them take the people that bought the Paris Shalai Kedin?
Yeah.
Oh, at the stam, if he sold the field and he owes her money because he took it Shalai Kedin.
No. He sold the Paris and he's not allowed to have the Paris.
Oh, okay.
No, she basically stole it, which you're right. Maybe it's not necessarily. Does she have a right for that? But I don't. I wish I remembered those Gemaras from last week of what happens when a guy steals, right? I know there's all sorts of complicated ways whether you're allowed to collect it or not. But either way, so this lady's divorce didn't happen till Tishrei, but she has a star that it was written in Nisan. So that means he went and he sold all the belongings. He sold all the payers, right? So now she's going to come say, you couldn't sell the payers that were my payers. So why aren't we concerned with that? So then this is good according to the Shita that says that once he puts his eyes on her to divorce her, right? Shuv ein lebal payers shaper. So according to that Shita, that once he decides to divorce her, he no longer gets the payers, then that makes sense. Meaning he, even though the get didn't happen till Tishrei, but once he decided in Nisan that he's divorcing her, so he no longer gets the payers. So Itaka was wrong for selling it, therefore she can go collect it. But according to Mandama that says he gets payers until he actually gives the get. So what are you going to say? So the Gemara answers, when this lady comes to ask for the money back, Amrina Allah, we're going to tell her, meaning the buyers are really going to tell her, I see Raya, Amos Matagita, bring proof when the get came to your hand. Meaning it's even though the get is dated that it was in Nisan, we're going to tell her you have to prove when you actually got the get. We don't trust the date on the get. So the obvious question,
aren't there Adam on the star? Why is that not good enough?
But it could be you didn't give it.
Are there Adam on the Metzia? How does someone prove?
What?
How does someone prove you're going to get? I'm saying, what's the regular process? If you write a get, you don't have to give the get. You could change your mind.
Right? So that's. Whatever the process.
Yeah, whatever.
So that's what it sounds like. Once she has to prove it.
So there must be a process for that.
What?
There must be a process for that.
No, yeah, you have to prove. You have to have Adam, I guess. You have to have Adam. That's what it was. But either way, the Gemara's kasha is ma'ishno mishtari chayiv. Why is it different than a shtar chayiv? The Tanan matzah shtari chayiv, right? If you find a shtar chayiv in the street, right? This goes way back to when this whole sugya started. Im yesh ben achrayis nechasim. So the Mishnah said, if there's responsibility in it, lo yavser, don't give it back. We're talking about where the guy is the chayiv is maida, meaning the loiva is maida that the shtar, that the loan did happen. It was shum shema kasav lilvas benisa. And so why are we saying, why don't you give it back? Right? Because we're afraid that it was written in Nisan. Same chashash, meaning the shtar was written in Nisan, but the loan, till they worked out all the particulars, didn't happen until Tishrei. The katar of lekuchai shaloi kedin, and he is going to come collect from the lekuchas, from the people that purchased this field shaloi kedin. So there we have the same chashash, and we say, don't give it back. Hasam nami lahadar. Why don't you say over there, give it back the shtar to the malva, and if the malva is going to come and take away the properties that were sold, name alay, I see raya, bring proof when you got the shtar, meaning the date on the shtar is not necessarily good. If we're saying by get, that you give back the get to the woman, and she has to prove what day the get was given, right? So then why you say the same thing by the star? How come the star you don't give it back? The question is, how come by get you give it back to her and by star you don't? So Amri, so they said, Hachi gabi get isha, via get isha, asi lakeach, the tava, Omar, the lakeach, the guy that bought the fruit from the husband, is going to say to her, Omar, haida hadron nahele rabbana legita, this that the Rabbanan gave you back your get, mishum deloy tagen v'tesif, so that you shouldn't be an aguna and sit and you'll be an aguna, meaning normally when somebody pays somebody back, you take back the star, right, so that the person can't collect again. Because meaning the lady is going to say, "Oh, I have the star," right? So that means that, and the star was from Nisan. So the guy's going to say, it's not a proof that you have a star. The Chachamim had to give you back the get so that you can prove that you were divorced, so that you can get married to somebody else. And now that you're coming to use this get to actually rip the mitra literally means to rip, meaning to collect from the husband, then you have to prove it. When the get came to your hand. But by a shtar chayiv, the purchaser is not going to come say to the guy, how come you have a shtar that you owed money? Why is the guy holding a shtar chayiv? Meaning, why is the loiva holding a shtar chayiv if he already paid it back? Right? So pshita, so the haveli rabbanon l'shtar chayiv, pshita, and then it's pashut that the shtar is legit, because otherwise, why would they give you back the shtar? Right? Lemitrafu, it must be the only reason they gave it back is that you can come collect from the people that bought the field. Shmamina, kamar rabbanon b'milsa. So it must be that the rabbanon fixed the whole situation. And now the star is coming into and the star came into your hand before I bought the fields, and therefore must be you're entitled to collect the fields. And since we're afraid that that's what's going to happen, therefore we have to not give him back the get. Okay, it's a whole lump. This is really not that hard. Maybe when you do it for the fifth time, maybe epis, it sinks in. This one, most of the other mudim did not sink in. But basically, we have to try and figure out, why did this loiva still have a shtar? Why does the loiva still have a shtar? Meaning, again, the shtar got lost. The shtar says that one guy owes money to another guy, right? Now, the shtar is lost. We are trying to figure out, should you give the shtar back to the loiva? The loiva admitted that the loan existed, and we said, don't give it back. Why not? Right? And in the same scenario, by a get, and the husband admitted that he divorced her, we say, give her back the get. Why and by the get do we give her back the get? Which means that she can now collect money. Get and loiva is the same thing, right? She's owed money, right? Or she can collect money, and the loiva also is, the malva can collect money, right? So we say, I'm sorry, the malva, I keep saying give it back to the loiva, give it back to the malva, right? But they're both the same thing. The lady is considered a malva because her husband owes her money, and the malva obviously lent money. So how come we give the shtar back to the lady and we don't give the shtar back to the lender? So we're saying that by the lady, the borrower, the lender. I keep saying borrower. It's the lender. Give the shtar back to the lender.
Why would you?
Because the loiva admitted it that there was a loan. Right?
So why would you give it back to the lender?
Because that's who the loiva said he borrowed money, so you give the shtar back to the lender.
Oh, so he can collect the lender.
Yeah. So by the isha, we're saying that. How's it go? By the isha, we're saying that. Well, we understand why the chum gave her back to get, even though the guy might have given her the ksuva, because they gave it to her so that she can get remarried with him. Now that she's coming to collect on it, so we say, okay, that's a different story now. You're coming to collect on it, prove when this get was actually given. The date is not enough, right? So that's why we don't mind giving her back the get, because she's going to have to prove when the get was actually given. But the guy with the loan, somebody who comes, the malva presents the star, and they're going to say, okay, what's the story with the star, right? So we're going to say, well, why does he have the star for? If he has a star, that means the loan wasn't paid back, right? And he's not going to ask for proof when the loan happened. Maybe the star was written 3-4 months before the loan actually happened. He's not going to be choshev for that, because he's going to say, why would he have the star? If he has the star, it must be legit. So because of that concern, we say, okay, we can't give it back to the malva, right? Because we're afraid that the star was written a few months before the loan actually happened. Okay, fine. Next in the Mishnah, a new subject, Shachrurei Avadim. It's not really a new subject. It's saying it's going to have a similar Gemara. If you find the shichrur from Avadim,
Why can't you give it back?
because we're afraid he's going to collect when he doesn't belong. He doesn't belong.
On the achrayos.
Yes.
And what if you didn't lose the shot?
If you didn't lose it, then there's no reason to be concerned.
He has
Whenever
paid
you
on the
lose it,
star.
there's a chesaron in the star. Yeah, the Gemara asked that. Why don't you do that with every star? And it said because if it's lost, it already has a reyes.
But Yaakov, Tyson over here pointed out again. The little Tyson in the bottom pointed out again.
What?
Just say you shouldn't forget. We only have this shash because of the rays and the star.
Very good, right? But Naftali's asking about the loan. So the Gemara only addresses the loan.
It's the exact same svara. The
And
Gemara is not mechalik when it comes to the rays, huh?
Right? Yeah, maskim. It's the same svara. Yes, and Gemara is going to have a similar Gemara with Shechrui Avadim. Same thing. So Shechrui Avadim is the same thing as a get. It's just the document that the slave was freed. So Tana Rabbanan, Matzah Shtar Shichr B'Shuk. Let's say you find the Shtar Shichr in the Shuk, meaning it says that this Eved was freed. So Bishmancha Rav Maida, when the master is Maida, they freed him, Yachsel Eved, you give it back to the Eved. Ain't Rav Maida, when the Rav is not Maida, Lo Yachsel Lo Lezeved Lo Lezeh, then don't give it back to each other. So I'm going to ask, same Shakavatari. So Bismah, if you understand this Gemara, then you'll understand the previous Gemara, right? And even if you didn't understand the previous, maybe this time we do it again, we'll get it. Bismah Rav Maida, Right, we're saying that when the Rav is Moed, you give it to the Eved. Why? Why don't we choshe that maybe he gave the get shichrur, meaning the get out of jail free card in Nisan, v'loy nasan loy, meaning he wrote it in Nisan, v'loy nasan loy al Tishrei, he didn't give it until Tishrei, v'azal avda, and the Eved went, v'kana nichsin Nisan v'al Tishrei, and the Eved went and bought himself properties because he was free. Ba'azal Rav is of Nidu, and then the Rav will come and sell it. Meaning he could say, oh, the Eved, what this is talking about Eved Knani. So what the Eved Knani bought belonged to me, right? Kamashu Kanta Eved Kanta Rav. So therefore, this Eved wasn't free. Umapik le l'shichr, the cause of Benisan, and then he's going to take out, meaning if you give the star, meaning he did what was right, because he gave him the star, the freedom star, was written in Nisan, but he didn't actually get rid of the Eved till Tishrei. And of course, during that time, the Eved belonged to the boss. So when the Eved bought property, it went automatically to the boss. Now, this Eved's going to take out the star and say, hey, I was freed in Nisan. And he's going to say, all these properties of mine that the Baal sold was illegal. He was selling my stuff, and he's going to take it back. The Qatar of Lekuchas, and he's going to go to the people that bought the properties off the master and take it with them. Shaloi Kedin. Right? So why don't we have the same chashash? And so meaning, why are we giving the star, the get shichr, back to the Eved? Meaning why are we chashav? But again, this predated star. So Hanich Lamadam was supposed to Eved Sheyot Rabbi Lecherus. This is according to the Manda where it says it's a schus for the Eved that he's going out free. Meaning, if it's a schus for him, ukabaya the Omar, Ada b'chasamav zachin, and the Adim, right? We said Abaya way back hold that Adim that sign on a star that works automatic and it kicks. Well, even if the loan happened before, once the Adim sign on the star, I'm sorry, even if the loan didn't happen until later, as long as the star was before it, we look at it as if it happened by the star. So but that's only when it's a schus for the person that's getting the star. So if this Eved is considered a schus that he became free, so then according to Abaya, right, when they sign on it in Nisan, he goes free, even though he really wasn't freed until Tishrei. It's a chiv to the Eved, meaning it's not a good thing for an Eved to be freed. It's not good for an Eved to be free. He should be it's much better for him when he is under a boss. So then what are you going to say? Meaning, so why aren't we choshev for this? So my answer is the chiyasi lemitraf, when he's going to come to take the belongings, Amrina lei, I see raya, emas mata shechroliyot. For the same way that we said to a woman, when you can have the get from Nisan, but you're going to have to prove exactly when that get happened. So we're saying the same thing here to the Eved. We can give you the get, shikhr, but you're going to have to prove when exactly you were freed. Okay, fine. Dayaitiki, so we said it, Dayaitiki, I think I pronounced it right, Dayatiki Matana. Right, so there's the Tiki, Matana, all the other things. The Tiki, Matana, Shaibran, receipts, they don't go back. You know, I mean, if you find the Tiki is a star right before a guy dies. So Matana and a Shaibran, you don't give it back. Right? So Tanabana, Ezi Daitiki, what is a Daitiki? Da Tehei Lamekam, it stands for Daitiki, is this should be for you forever. Belias, to be. That if he dies, he's giving all his belongings to somebody else. The Daitiki is basically a will that you write right before the guy dies. He doesn't want, he doesn't like one son, he doesn't want him to get any Yerusha, he gives it to the other son, he wants to give it to his sister, to this one, that one, so it all is chal right before the guy dies. Matana, what's a matana? A matana is a little different. If he's giving it as a present, so he's giving it as it's going to be from yours from today till after Misa, which means it's in no man's land. Whenever somebody gives something, he says it's yours from today till after Misa, so then it belongs to both of them. Meaning the guy who's dying can't sell it. Neither of them could sell it, right? But he gets it for himself, right? I'm sorry, I have to go to the bathroom for a minute and then I'll be back. Yeah.
Paris wants to.
I tried to get Akiva and Gershon into some sort of machlokes, and I could cut out for a minute or two, but it didn't happen. So, sorry.
Right now, I'm not under the ocean right now, so I can't have a conversation with him.
I hear. All right. Yeah, fine. So again, so that's the difference between a matana and a deatiki. The deatiki is that everything, the kinyan is going to happen right before the death, and a matana is where it happens mehayim and achar misa, meaning the guf of the karka, the actual karka goes to the inheritors or whoever he's giving it to from that day, but they can't sell it or do anything with it until the guy dies. Okay, so the Gemara asks, Alma iksiva mehayom elachamisa hu dekani. It's mashma that a matana, meaning it's I guess it's a little bit nageya to matanas lev yoinim or shalach mara. Sounds like matana is something that you do mehayom elachamisa. What about if a guy just gives a present? Right? Alma iksiva mehayom elachamisa hu dekani v'iloi loikani. Mashma that you make a star matana to somebody he's not going to be kind of. Right? Meaning if you give it to the guy right now from today, having nothing to do with Lachar Misa, why shouldn't it be kindness? So Rabbi Hochi Kamer, no, this is what it means to say. Ezehi matana, matana's bari, shehi kematana shemina. What's the matana of somebody who's healthy? That's similar to the matana of somebody who's dying. The loikani ela Lachar Misa. What type of matana can that be? Kol shekasab b'mayom Lachar Misa. If it's written mehayom Lachar Misa, meaning a person could do this, even if a person who's healthy can do this thing too, and say, by the way, you're a real nice guy. I'm just letting you know that from today, the field is yours after Misa. Okay, you could do that. Taima, the loy amar tenu. So the Gemara says, well, this whole thing is where the guy didn't say, give it back. He didn't say, give it back to the guy who I gave the present to, etc., etc. Amar tenu. But it's mashma that if the person who was on the other side of the star, the giver, right, says give it to him, then then we would give it, right? It's mashma again in the Mishnah that the other guy, meaning you have the star, so you bring it to the fellow and he says, yours, not yours. He said, yeah, give it to him. So it's mashma, then we would listen. But I mean, I ask, if you find a diotko or a paitiki, and a paitiki we know is when somebody takes a loan, he gives something a specific thing that he said is going to be paid back, meaning that it's going to go instead of the cash. Meaning, you say this can of soda is going to be yours if I don't pay you back. That's an apaitiki. Even if both are maida, that there was a loan here, you don't give it to either one, right? Because maybe we're afraid that it never, meaning they have the star, but they never actually, finish the loan. So how come there we don't trust it? So Amar Reva Abba Mama, like Kasha on Tama Bays, and get ready to blend your head right now. Habibari, Habashimira. One is talking about where these shtaras were Pasadi healthy, and one is talking about where he was dying. What does this mean? Masnisin, the Katani, the Mishnah, which says Ha'amar Tanu, if the guy, the giver, says give it to him, nice then is give it, we give it to him. It's talking about somebody who's dying, who's somebody who can take back what he wrote. We know that a Shchiv Meirah has a special din. Normally, in order to give something over, the guy has to do a kinyan. Shchiv Meirah, there's no kinyan necessary, because we want to make sure the guy has Yishuv Adas, that he's going to die, right? That he's going to die in peace. So we say, don't worry, you wrote in the thing that you're giving it away to your grandsons or your friends or whatever. It's good. But he has a right to take it back. So by a Shchiv Meirah, since he has a right to take it back, so even if you give the star to the recipient, the Shchiv Meirah, if he ends up living, he could just say, oh, by the way, I don't want him. There's no cheating that could be done, because he could just tell the guy, by the way, I'm not interested anymore. There's no damage that could be done. Meaning, if he legitimately wants to give it to him, great. So give it to him. If he legitimately wants to take it back, he could take it back regardless. That's a special din only by Shchiv Meirah. It doesn't work by Matana. Now, what's going on in Damrinon? Now the Gemara goes through what the thought process would be and how we're not concerned. What could be said here? What kind of scam could happen? Dilma kasumei karalahai, because maybe the guy dying wrote it first to this guy, the imlach, and then he changed his mind and he did not give it to him. And he wrote the star, he says, I'm giving it to my favorite nephew. And then he changed his mind. He said, I'm not giving it to my favorite nephew. And then he went and gave it to somebody else. And he actually gave it to him. So and now maybe he's gonna change his mind from giving it to the second guy. Again, this guy's all over the place, but you can't blame him because he's dying, right? So he first decides giving it to one and wrote a star. He says, you know what? I'm not giving it to him. I'm gonna give it to another guy. He gives it to the other guy with the star. Now he wants to change his mind. So even Matana, so Mamela, so that's not a concern, because he has a choice whether he could change his mind as many times as he wants, because he's a Shchiv Meirah, he's dying. But even Matana's Bari, Yovesley, if he gives it to somebody who, if it's a Matana from somebody who's healthy, then and he gave it to a guy, less lepseda. There's no loss. The chinaf katarti, because when they bring out both shtaris, basraisa zachi, the second guy is going to be zachi, the hadabe mekamaisa, because he changed his mind from the first one, right?
So far you can give it to both.
What?
So far you can give it back to both.
He's saying again, this is a Shchiv Meirah. He could change his mind many times he wants. And now the problem is, now you might potentially have two people coming to Bezdin with shtaris, right? Because he wrote one star for the first guy and changed his mind and never gave it to him. And then he wrote a star to the second guy and gave it to him. Now we find this star and we say, okay, let's give it back to the guy it says in the star. And because the guy said give it to him. So what's our concern? If the first star was a Matanas Bari, there's no loss, right? The Chinaf Katarti, because if there's two shtaras, Pasraisa Zachi, the last one is going to be the Zaycho and the Hadabe Mekamaisa, because he changed his mind from the first guy. And even matana shchimera nami yovasneli. And if the second guy was given the present as a shchimera, less papseda, there's no loss. The basraisa, I'm sorry, and yeah, that's to the second guy. Less papseda, there's no loss. The basraisa zachi, because the second one is going to be zach the kahada be'mikamaisa. So he went back from the first one. All right. So meaning the Mishnah has no problem since it's a matana of shchimera. No scandal can come out of this because bottom line is
also
it's
Bori, no scandal.
what?
The Gemara just said Matanas
No,
Bori.
the first guy was matanas bori. The second one was matanas shchimera.
Right.
It's a matanas bori within the matanas shchimera.
So which is the case that you can have a scandal?
With the next one, kikatani. That's by the Mishnah and it's all about shchimera. Kikatani bebraisa. When we say in the braisa, afal pish shneim maidim. Even though they both agree that this matana happened, lo yafsa lo lezeh lo lezeh. Don't give it to either one. That's only a bari, a healthy person. The la bar mahadaru. He cannot change his mind. When a healthy person writes a star and there's a kinyan with the star, he cannot go back on it. Damrinon. Meaning, so now why shouldn't we give back the stars? Because we're going to say Dilma kara. Maybe he gave a present to the first guy, the imlech and he changed his mind and he didn't give it to him. Meaning, so now there's this star floating around that he should have destroyed because he never ended up giving him that present. He goes and he writes a different star to another guy, and he gives it to him. Now he decides, you know what? I don't like the second guy. I want to go back to the first guy. But I can't change. I'm not allowed to go back. Bez's not going to let me change my mind and not give it to the second guy. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell Bezdin that I gave the star to the first guy, and therefore they're going to give it back to him because I'm moida that I should give it to him. Because for the Kodim, when he's going to take it out, he's going to have the earlier date. Zacha Behu, and he's going to be Zaycha. Right? I think that's the way he's, that's the scam that he's going to say.
Doesn't ask what's with the second star, if that's true.
What? They don't know about the second star.
When the guy, it goes try to take the guy's field.
Doesn't know right then. So that the bottom line is, there's two. What's going to happen? In a year from now, they're both going to present their stars, right? The first guy's going to say, hey, he gave it to me first. Look, here it is. Oh, why was there a second one?
Yeah.
They'll say it was forged. Right? Elav, so that's what the guy would try and do. Elav Rinale, but we tell him, Anan, hi, we're not giving it to him. Even though you admit to say to give it to him, we're not giving it to him. Maybe you wrote the star, but you never gave it to him. And you gave it to somebody else. And now you want to try and go back on it. If you haven't given it to anybody else, and you really want to give it to the first guy, so give him a new star. Right? Basically, we tell the guy, if you're not pulling a scam and you really it's going only to the first guy, so write him a star right now. We're keeping the star. Peasant tell the guy, we're throwing out the star. You really believe that you're giving this thing as a present to the first guy and there's no second guy out there, write him a star right now. There's going to be no problem. And give it to him. Because if you gave it to somebody else, less pseida, the kadim zachi, then there's no loss because the first guy is going to get it. Meaning, we tell the guy, there's no reason for us to give this star to the first guy. We're going to throw it in the garbage, and if you write him a star, and there's no second guy, so he's going to get it. And even if there is a second guy, this star is going to then this guy's going to get it. All right? Yeah, because the second guy is going to get it because his star came first. Meaning we tell him, write the star right now, give it to your guy who you want it to have. If you're taka not lying and there's no second guy, good, so this guy gets it. And if you're saying the truth, and and if you're lying, saying if you're legit, then fine, everything's gonna work. And if you're lying, you can give the star guy a star now because the second guy, his star is dated before the first guy, and he's gonna come take it. Yeah, this is again another daf where this helps Yidden. If you want to know why yeshiva bachrim that don't go to college end up owning all these businesses and making all sorts of deals and things. This is one of those amudim right here. Now, I'm not so sure they understood it in yeshiva, but if they did, this sure helps out in the business acumen and a lot. Because we're not done yet. We have a whole other one. Maskav lo Rav Zir. So again, basically the Mishnah is saying, the Gemara is saying now that the Mishnah, which says that you give it back, is talking about a shchiv meirah, because there's no loss if you give the star back. And the brisa that says you never give it back is talking about a regular star matan, a healthy guy. They both, the brisa and the Mishnah both say the word I can't ever get it straight. Whatever, diaitiki, right? Which is shchiv meirah. So how can you say that one is talking about a present and one is talking about a shchiv meirah? Elo amar Rav Zvid, hava b'shchiv meirah. They're both talking about a shchiv meirah, but like kasha habei habebrei. One is talking about him, and one is talking about his son. Okay, now, as we know, whenever you bring a son into the wills, bad news, right? So masnisin the karma tnu noisnin in the Mishnah where he says give it, so we give it. B'didei is somewhere where he himself said give it back to the guy. The bar mahadaru, because he is a guy that could change his mind, like we said. Right? Damrinon, because we say, even if he gave it away to somebody else, less pseida, there's no loss. Right? The kama ubasra, because if you have somebody who's earlier and somebody later, basra zachi. The second guy is zaycha by shchiv meirah. Again, by shchiv meirah, the second guy is zaycha. By matana of a bari, the first guy is zaycha. The hahadabe mekama, because he changed his mind from the first guy. Kikotani brisa, but what the brisa is talking about, even though they're both maida that he gave him as a present, lo yasa, lo lazeh, don't give it back to either one of them. Maybe by the son, maybe the father wrote it to this guy, the imlach, but he changed his mind. So he wrote a star for a guy and he changed his mind, but lo yavas, he didn't give it to him. Mubasar avua. And after the father died, the son who now yash in the field gave it away to somebody else. And he gave him the star. Right? And now the son changed his mind and he didn't want to give it to the second guy. So now what's he going to do? So he thought, I can't change my mind. I gave my Yerusha away to this guy. Amar lahu, so I'm going to tell them the Abba Yovele Lahai, my father gave it to this guy, Benisfule Kosve, and they're going to give him back the star, Benazel, and we're going to go, Benofik Mine, and take it away from the second guy, meaning they're going to give the star to the first guy who the father gave it to, and then they're going to go present it to the Bezdin, and they're going to say to Bezdin, my father gave it away to this guy. And the son, the person the son gave it away to, obviously it's meaningless. To who's Zachi, because he's Zachin at first. And then Veniflik Bahadeh, and then he's going to split it, meaning this guy's going to pull a scam under the table. He's going to go to the first guy and say, hey, listen, we're going to lose the star. We're going to go to Bezdin. We're both going to admit that my father gave it to you. And we're going to split the profits. So that's what we're afraid of. Hilkah. Therefore, so we have to stop this scam. Hilchach Amrina, we tell him, Anan, Hai Ksava, Lo Yavina Lilahai. We're not giving you this star that was lost. The Duma Michtav Kasvi Avu, maybe your father wrote it, may have Lo Yahavdale, but he never actually gave it to him. But Yifte At Lina Shachrini. And when you made a Yerusha, you gave it to somebody else. And you're changing your mind, you're going back. Ella, so then we say, Ikushta Ka'amrid, if you're saying the truth, that your father gave it to him, Zil At Hashta, you go now, Ksivle Shtar Achrinan, give him a star. Right? If you really think your father gave it to the first guy, give him a star now. Even if your father didn't give it to him, and you wrote it to somebody else, less say there's no loss. The Kama Basra, Kama Zachi, because if the other guy who you gave it away to presents the star, he's going to get it anyways. So basically, it's the same Gemara. It's the same scam that the guy wants to pull, but we're catching him by it by saying, listen, when Manavshach, you write the star, and you can write the star to the first guy. If he's legit, if you're legit that that's the only guy in the game, so he'll collect it. And if you're not legit, then he's not gonna get it anyways, because the guy that you gave it to, his star is written before this star, and maybe he's going to collect on it. Yeah, so it's only 9:30. I thought we'd go a little longer. Okay, once we're doing confusing, let's just finish the confusing. Let's do a few more lines. Yeah. Also tomorrow, I don't know how long they'll be available. So fine. Tanarabban. Matzah shoiver. If you find a receipt, right, meaning a receipt that she got her ksuba. Sometimes you have a husband who's going to be nice to his wife, and normally a husband only has to pay the ksuba when he gets divorced or when he dies. So here he prepays his ksuba and he tells his wife, you need some cash. I'm not paying for your clothing. Here's ksuba money, right? And she writes him a receipt that she got it. So Bismancha Isha, now it got lost. Then they find it in the streets. So Bismancha Isha Maida, when the Isha's Maida that the husband paid her Yafsir Labal, then give it to the husband. Any Isha Maida, if the Isha does not admit that the husband paid her the ksuba, don't give it to either one. Bismancha Isha Maida Mias Yafsir Labal. Right? Same question the Gemara had throughout the summer. Bisman that the Isha was Maida, you give it to the Baal. Okay. Meaning you give the receipt back to the Baal, and therefore he will no longer ever have to pay the ksuba. Okay, but what's the problem? Why aren't we choshesh that maybe he wrote to give it to her in Nisan, right? Meaning he was planning on paying her the ksuba in Nisan. I'm sorry, she didn't write the receipt, right? And she wrote the receipt, in Nisan. She wrote the receipt in Nisan, but loy nasna ad Tishrei, right? She didn't get the money. It's a little misleading here, right? Because nasna means she's giving, meaning there's a step in the Gemara that the Gemara leaves out where she wrote the receipt in Nisan. The part that the Gemara leaves out that Rashi says he didn't pay her till Tishrei, and she didn't actually give the receipt till Tishrei. Lamaisa, he gave her a ksuba in Tishrei, but she gave him a receipt in Nisan, right? Meaning the Nisan before the Tishrei. Ba'azla, and as she went, Savanta l'ksuba v'toivas anam Nisan at Tishrei. She illegally, because she never got her ksuba money, she went and she sold the rights of her ksuba, which we had before. It's on the Makas also. Right, a woman can sell the rights of her ksuba. It's like sort of an option. It's a real risky play, because basically what you're doing is you're buying the ksuba from the woman, and if her husband dies or divorces her, so you'll get to keep the ksuba money. But the risk is that if she dies first, then you get nothing.
Right, but she could also be Michael or something.
She could also be Michael, but it's a risk. It's a real risk. So she sold it to these guys for whatever amount of money, which she wasn't allowed to do, right? But she did it. Now he divorced her, and then he shows, look, I paid her in Nisan. So what's going to happen? So whatever business she did with her ksuba from Nisan to Tishrei, right? He is going to mess over. V'asa l'mitra v'lekucha shaloi kedin. Right? He's going to come take away property from the people that bought this ksuba from her, because he's going to say, I gave her the ksuba in Nisan, when the ksuba really didn't happen until Tishrei. So he's going to scam her. So why are we chaysha for that? Amar Rava, so Rava says, Shma mina, Isa the Shmuel, we haven't had this in a while. The Shmuel's got this great shita. How this works, I don't understand. I never understood it. I don't know if I will ever understand it. But Shmuel says, if a guy sells a shtar chayv to his friend, the chazer or machloi, machol, it's machol, afilu yarish machol, even the yarish can be machol. Basically, a guy is owed, let's say he's owed $1,000. So he goes to his friend and he says, I need cash now, but this loan is not due for another 6 months. Can I sell you this shtar for $500? Right? He's buying debt. Same thing like, when you buy debt, right? And the guy sells to his friend for $500, and then he calls up the lender, the borrower, and he says, I'm Michael. He totally shafts his friend. Right? Again, he's got a loan out to somebody, and he sells that loan to somebody else, and then goes and Michael the loan. So the guy that bought the loan from him is totally left out in the dark. Shmuel says a person could do that. Right? So since a person could do that, so the wife could do the same thing. Right? Because again, the wife is really the lender. So the wife could sell this ksuba to somebody and then say, I'm Michael, and then chef the guy, and finished. And we'd say Yarish Michael. So that's what we're talking about here. Abai doesn't like that teretz. Abai Amar Afilu Tema Lesel the Shmuel. Abai says, even without Shmuel, talking about where she also has the star ksuba. Meaning, the reason why we give it is because if she has the ksuba, right? So that means she didn't sell it. So if she didn't sell it, then this whole thing is not a concern. But meaning, if she didn't have the ksuba, then you shouldn't. Then we would taka not give it back to the husband, the receipt. But we're talking about here where there's a ksuba. So since she has a ksuba, nobody's buying a ksuba off a woman without taking the ksuba into their possession. Rav Amar, how come Rav doesn't like a bias teretz? Imishum shtar ksuba chashina l'shtei ksubas. Well, maybe she has two ksubas, right? Just because, if you're going to be worried about a shtar ksuba, so then just because she doesn't have a ksuba, maybe there's a second ksuba somewhere. Abai Amar, chada l'shtei ksubas loy chashinun. Abai says we're not worried about two ksubas, but so we're not worried about that. But shoyver bezmanoi tarif, a receipt gets collected from the time the receipt was written, even though it was not paid back until later, which is we had it already before tonight, and we had it before. Abayi's shita, Abayi l'tamei. Abayi goes according to his reason. The Amar Eidav b'chasamav zachin loyin. Eidim, when they sign on something, are automatically zachin. Meaning that's Abayi's shita. That when Eidim sign on a shtar, even if the shtar is predated, that the kinyan works. The kinyan of the Eidim works, even if nothing happened until later. All right, okay, we'll stop over there. I hope it was semi-understandable. If not, the problem was with me.
Yaakov, tomorrow post when you're ready, a few minutes before, I guess.
Yeah, I'll do that.
It's around 5, right?
Yeah, problem is my TSA pre don't work, but I have clear.